Hi, I'm Stephanie Rublitz. Welcome back to my channel. This week I am going to take this kimono and make it into a skirt. So about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, I had gone on a little thrifting expedition, and I will link my thrift haul video up here in the card in case you want to see it. And one of the things I got was this kimono. There was like 6 of them in Value Village, and I like this pattern the best, so I grabbed it. And immediately when I see a kimono, I think, oh, wrap dress, like obviously, super easy, change out the collar, like do a few things and it'd be great. But there's not enough wrap to make this a wrap dress on me. So I thought what I would do is make it into a skirt. And I have learned my lesson. I'm putting pockets on everything I can now. So it's gonna be a skirt with pockets. The kimono, you can't quite see in this shot. It's quite long. It's almost to my feet, which for me, I mean, is amazing. So that gives me a ton of fabric to work with. I'll probably make the skirt like just below the knee, so with shortening the length as well as like the extra fabric that I'll have in this back panel, I should be able to make it wide enough to make a really nice just gathered skirt for summer. It's a nice light cotton fabric, so I think it'll be great. Let's get to it. Alright, first thing I need to do is I need to stitch pick this whole thing apart, and there was a lot of pieces. A lot of it was actually hand stitched, so I felt kind of bad, but oh well, there you go. Now, there was a double panel that went down the back of the garment, and I didn't bother stitch picking that apart any further because I need it together anyways. Then there were 2 single panels that were down the front of the garment. These were on the inside collar, and then the 2 sleeves, which again, I didn't bother stitch picking any further. And this was the actual collar, which I will probably turn into a waistband. Now, the next thing I need to do is square up my fabric, and I'm going to cut the panels in half lengthways, which is going to give me the length for my skirt. Now, I did sew all of these panels. I kept them straight because I really liked how pretty the fabric was, and I was trying to kind of like make it easier and just would do a gathered skirt with rectangular pattern panels, but it didn't really work out, but I'll explain more about that later and how I fixed it. Now I'm going to sew a single panel onto a double panel, so that means I'm going to have a front and a back that are each made of 3 panels of this fabric. Now I did go ahead and top stitch it, which again, I'll explain later, I ended up regretting. I'm using a plate from my kitchen to get the shape of the pocket opening. And then I'm going to just sort of sketch out, like round out the edges a little bit so that the pocket bags are kind of pocket baggy shaped. It's really not rocket science, so that's why I'm not very technical about it. Now I am taking those sleeves, and I'm just going to use the sleeves to make my pocket bags out of. So there's 2 layers in the sleeve, so I'm automatically getting both of my top piece of the pocket bags. Now I'm also going to cut that smaller line for the pocket opening onto my skirt panels. Now I'm going to do the back side of the pocket bag, and this is actually going to also be the outside facing for the pocket. So I'm not going to cut out the smaller circle for the pocket opening because this is going to be the part that sticks out of that opening. Instead, I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm just going to cut that area square. There we go. So I have my bottom of my pocket bag, the top of my pocket bag, and the garment cut with the pocket opening. So I'm going to take the top of my pocket bag and I am going to stitch that to my garment. Now that that's stitched, I'm going to just go through and I'm going to cut little slits so that I can turn that fabric and have a really nice clean edge for the inside of my pocket, or sorry, the edge of my pocket, opening of my pocket, opening, that's where it is. I'm just going to put a piece of paper behind here because this fabric camouflages on itself, and I was thinking it might be really hard to see what I'm doing. So there is no other practical reason for that paper other than it helps you see where the pocket is. Now I'm just pinning around the pocket bag, and then I'm going to stitch that edge, and I'm going to zigzag it. There we go, it's all finished and sewn together, and you can see there's the pocket. I've done that on either side so that I have both of my pockets done. And now I'm going to take the back panel, the back set of 3 panels, sorry, and I'm going to stitch that down the pocket edge and connect the front and the back pieces. Now I'm going to hem it. Actually, I sewed one side, and now I'm going to hem the whole thing, and then I will sew up the other side as well. I'm just using a hem guide. Yeah, I could just put the hem guide in there and then iron it, but that means I would have to move my camera. And I don't have a camera mount over my ironing board. Now that I've ironed that one seam, I'm just rolling in my raw edge, and I'm going to pin that, press it, and then I will stitch that as well. My hem will be done. Okay, so originally I was thinking that maybe I could just use the full panels as they were in the skirt, thinking that it would just come together sort of like a peasant skirt, and that it would gather nicely at the top. However, the fabric is sturdy enough that it's not really laying nice, and when I did sort of a trial run with a waistband, I just wasn't liking the silhouette very much. It was just too boxy and bulky up top. So I am going to change that, and I'm gonna add in a more of an A-line shape, which unfortunately means that I'm going to have to lose some of like the full panels, but it'll be fine. I think it was just, I was trying to make it easy on myself, honestly. So I'm gonna go back. I'm going to make those panels into an A-line. I am not going to touch the seam next to the pocket sew because obviously I don't want to redo the pockets, and I don't want to make the openings to the pockets any smaller than they already are because they're just the perfect size right now. So that leaves me with 4 seams that I can take in and make the skirt an A-line, which really you only need 2. So it'll be really evenly distributed, that extra width that I'm taking off of the top of the skirt. So I looked at the numbers. I'm taking my measurement from around the widest part of my hips because it's a gathered skirt. I still want to be able to pull it on over my hips. So I'm taking that measurement plus like 2 inches just so that I know that I can get it over easily. And then because I have 4 seams, I divided that by 4, and I came up with 7 inches on each seam need to come off. And because my seams are going to be, or my fabric is going to be folded, right? So it's going to be double layer with like the seam running down one side, and then I'm going to mark how much of that seam I'm going to take off. So because it's folded in half, essentially, I'm going to mark that at 3.5 inches. So half of 7, 3.5 inches is what I'm going to take off. Do you like my hand gestures? Does that make sense? It'll make sense in a second when I show you the video. So that's how I arrived at the number, the measurement that I want to take off of the top of the waist, and then I'm just gonna ankle it right down until it blends in with the old seam. So I'm not gonna have to touch my hem that I already did, and it'll be easy. So let's get back to it right now. Okay, so here I am marking out the 3.5 inches from my seam, from my old seam, and I'm just going to take the length of my ruler to guide that seam back into the original seam. So I'm going to stitch that, and once I have that stitch, I'm going to trim the excess off so that I can finish that seam. And then I'll iron it, and here I am just giving it a top stitch. Here is the collar. Now I've gone and repressed it because there was some parts that were a little bit thicker and some that were a little bit thinner, so I just evened it out so that it's like a double fold bias tape, and I'm just creating a casing for my elastic to slide into. I'm leaving a little bit open at the back, but I'm going to sew all the way around the waistband to attach that casing. Now here we are, I'm going to put the elastic in. I'm going to put a pin, a big safety pin on one side to help draw it through, but I'm also going to pin the other side to the skirt because there's nothing worse than like pulling your elastic through and pulling it too hard and having the other end of your elastic get sucked into the casing, and then you got to pull the whole thing out and start over again. I'm making sure too, while I'm doing this, that I'm keeping my elastic nice and flat. I don't want any turns in it. Now I'm gonna just pin it together so I can try it on. Fits great, so now I know that I can go back and sew that piece of elastic together. Once I have that sewn together, I can go ahead and finish putting my casing on. And I just am going to layer one side over the other, and I've just got a fold in the edge so that it has a nice clean look to it. I don't know why I didn't show this as well, but I did put 2 extra stitches in 2 different locations on the waistband just to keep it from twisting. So here she is. A cute, very light, summery skirt. Now, I haven't had a skirt, like a summer skirt, I don't even know, like before my kids were born, I wore some skirts. It's been a long time. They were unpractical, like on the playground, so I think that's one of the reasons why I stopped wearing them. But I'm happy to get back in them, although I do feel a little bit out of my comfort zone, like just being in and moving in a skirt again, which I'll get over. But yeah, it's out of my comfort zone because A, it's a skirt, and B, the pattern. I am not a big pattern person, but I really like this pattern. So I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone, which is part of what this whole like 1-year challenge was supposed to be. And I was looking back on my videos like when I uploaded last week, and I was like, but have I been pushing my boundaries? No, I haven't. I've been making things that are comfy, things that I know I already like. So yeah, I need to do more boundary pushing on myself, and I'm going to work on that. I think that's all I have for this week, so thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate it more than you'll ever know, and I will see you next week. So until then, do all the things, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.